Well, Lando, thank you very much for joining us.
My pleasure, no worries.
In your mind, what is high performance?
What is high performance? High performance is performing at the very best level of yourself, your abilities, and I reckon it's as simple as that. The best of your own abilities, because high performance is different for everyone. Of course, high performance within Formula One is a little bit more complicated, but it's still the edge of technology, always pushing the boundaries, always trying to find improvements. So maybe more in that direction. High performance is trying to push the boundaries, always trying to find better of yourself.
So that leads us on to asking how you know what your best is. We get a lot of people that listen to this podcast and they get in touch and they say, how do I know I'm working to the top of my abilities or to the very best that I can?
Yeah.
Have you got ways of judging whether you are giving all you can or all you should?
I do, but it isn't necessarily myself. I think the best thing for me is the people I have around me. My manager, my trainer, my dad, the people I'm with pretty much in everyday life. I've been with my manager and trainer for the last 11, 12 years almost, 10 years. So they almost know me better than I know myself in some aspects. And as yourself, it's easy to get caught up in a loop, and kind of get complacent with some things. So they're always there to give me a little kick when I need it and keep me grounded, all these kind of things. But for me, they're the most important thing. But as you get older, I think you realize more and more, or I've realized more and more for myself, what works for me, what doesn't, what kind of keeps me motivated, what keeps me wanting to work hard. Because it's easy to just kind of, miss a training session, miss this, miss that. And you kind of realize the consequences that has quite quickly. So, but the people around me are the most important thing for me.
So can I take you back? You said there that as you get older, you come to realise that.
Yeah.
Can I take you back the other way to
Sure.
when you were younger? And just ask a little bit about your background.
Yeah.
I mean, on the podcast series, we interview people from a wide range of backgrounds. But your dad was a successful businessman.
Yeah.
You grew up surrounded by privilege and
Yeah.
wealth. You went to Millfield School, for example. What benefits did you think that growing up in that kind of environment taught you?
It's tricky because there's obviously so many nice things which obviously come with that. And I'm lucky and thankful to be in the position that I've been in with my dad doing so well and so on. And that's led on to me having and being given many good opportunities, to always be with a good team, to have a manager and a trainer since I was 12, 13 years old. But I think the one thing is that my mum and dad have done very well, I would say, is keep me grounded and kind of realize or live the life, let's say, as normally as possible, not get carried away in any way. I'm definitely, I can say I'm privileged, but not in the way that I get whatever I want and I get nice cars from my dad and all of this stuff. There's many things which my dad has given to me and I say invested in me, but it's the investment, not a given. And then I need to pay back that investment and reward him and use what he's given me to show it's all been useful and not a waste of time. So I think just my parents have been very good at keeping me in that state.
And did it apply a bit of a pressure to you because you weren't able to say, well, I didn't have a great kart, I didn't have a manager, I didn't get everything. You had everything that you needed.
Yeah.
Therefore, there was only one determining factor, right?
Me.
Which is you. Maybe that's the perfect upbringing for Formula One. But I wonder how that sat with you when you're 12, 13 years old.
I have lived with the comments you get from other people. I guess already at a young age, maybe just don't see it and realize it as much, how much people talk, and social media then takes over that side of it. But
were you judged even then, do you think, going to the races?
Of course, yeah. Because we used to have a motorhome and we used to already be with the good teams and stuff like that. So since you pretty much start already, you have the judgment of this guy's got all the best stuff and they don't and stuff like that. But there are many people that also have other things which are just as good and so on. And there are many circumstances when it doesn't come down to, do you have a better engine? Do you have a better chassis? Do you have better people you work with? A lot of it does come down to you in the end. So, yeah.
So one of our previous guests came from a similar background,
Yeah.
the boxing promoter Eddie Hearn, and he spoke about how the shadow that his father had cast as a successful businessman had sort of fueled him to want to try and be better than him.
Yeah.
Did you ever feel that your dad's success has cast a shadow that drives you today?
I mean, I wouldn't say like I want to be better than my dad, because we live like a very different profession and live a different life. But many things which want to make me not get the comments of I'm in the position of where I am because of him, right? And I think like between my dad and I, like I never wanted him to pay for me to come into Formula One. That was like one goal, you know. He could support me until Formula One, or let's say till Formula 2, to get to that point, give me those opportunities and so on. But I, like personally, as a feeling, I wouldn't want to come into Formula One having to pay for it and be, although it's kind of just a bit of a mentality thing, not have the mentality of I'm not here because I don't deserve it. I'm here because I've paid for it, and I never really wanted that at all. And I feel much prouder to say that I'm here because McLaren brought me on, and I was a McLaren junior driver. They brought me on, I got better, and then I was the official driver. So, like, it makes me much happier saying that than the opposite one. Yeah, like I have to know to a certain extent, I'm lucky for the opportunities that I got, and the fact he could just support me into a Formula 2 was already a lot more than what people get. So I also know that on the flip side.
I think sometimes we're guilty, right, in this world of taking the values of someone who's had a struggle as being more valuable than someone who has had a privileged upbringing. Right? And I think we have to be so careful with that, because you could have had all the great facilities and the managers and all the guidance and all the help in the world, right? Without hard work and dedication and determination and sacrifice from you, there's no way we're sitting here having this conversation, is there?
Definitely not. Definitely not. I mean, because like when I started, I wasn't. I had a bit of a natural talent for it, but I wasn't amazing. It's not like I started and won everything. And
was that hard?
No, because I think for the first 3, 4, 5 years of my life of doing karting, I'm doing it because I'm young and it's just a hobby. You know, it's because that's what I love at that point in my life. I don't think, for me anyway, like I'm at a point where I think this is what I want to do with my career when I'm 8 years old. It was just a lot more, I love doing this. I just want to do this for now. More when I was like 13 was my goal was Formula One. How can I start to put a plan in place? No, I wouldn't say it was hard. I think I learned a lot, and of course, and I had good people around me to tell me how to do better, and I had to put in the effort to become a better driver. It wasn't like it just came completely naturally to me. Definitely certain elements were natural, and I think if you want to be one of the best, you got to have some knack for it where you can just jump in and be pretty good. But then, especially to be in Formula One, you got to, it's that next level, you know, what brings you those final hundreds and that final 10th and stuff. And there are hundreds of thousands of people who can drive a car well, you know, and you probably could jump in a car and do a pretty good job straight away. But then it's those final few little things. And that isn't all down to who has the most money and those kind of things. A lot of that is down to working with the people around you. A bit of it is just experience, you know, the more kind of testing you get to do and so on, the better. But I still drove alongside teammates and had people I was practicing with every week and stuff like that who aren't in the position I am now. So there's no excuse why like that's just suddenly helped me a lot more than them. That final bit is down to the determination of the driver, how much effort he's willing to put in, the sacrifices he wants to make from such a young age.
What were
they? I guess like the social life of school is probably the initial one. And you probably don't really realize that until you're a bit more mature and you kind of hit 20, or I'll say more like 18, I would say, when you think like, don't really have any friends from school and from growing up. Like all of my friends are now from racing, from karting and so on. And very few, you know, every now and then I maybe get a message from some of my mates from school, but it's not like we're best mates anymore. It's just like we knew each other and that was all. So, I kind of like missed that side of it. I didn't know, like, I guess I missed what I don't know about life from living up, you know, and going to uni and going out every night, all those kind of things. That's the life I didn't live, but I could never change that for what I got now.
So What were the kind of values then that your parents were instilling in you at that young age that you think you still hold true to today?
Just like etiquette and being polite, I guess, like your interactions with other people, you know, never thinking that I'm better or more deserved than anyone else that I work with. And I think that shows in like a lot of what I do now in Formula One, I think, personally. Like I don't just turn up for Formula One and just like, I get paid and go home, you know. I love everything that goes into it. Working here in MTC with the mechanics, some nights, you know, staying late, I do the tours, I go and see everyone. I do some of my work experience here and just kind of getting to know everyone. Before I was the race driver for McLaren, then I would stay with the mechanics. I would pack up the garage and take the car apart after the races and stuff. Like that I just love.
Was that your choice, or was that
that's
expected
my choice
of you?
No, definitely not expected. I would say what is expected is the opposite side, you know, is just seeing the Formula One driver rock up in all their fancy clothes, do their work and then jet off home. And
so what did it do for you then? Why make that choice?
Like that's what I enjoy. That's just what I like.
And did you understand at that point the value in that as well?
I would say so. I mean, I was 17 at the time, 17, 18. So I knew like the values of people and how much of a difference that can make. How much, if I help them, how much they can help me, and just the improvements you can get from doing that. But it was never something I had to do. And I mean, like, honestly, it's something I do less of now because I value my time a little bit more, of being able to go home and relax a little bit before I go into the next races and stuff, especially with how busy we are nowadays. But at that time, it was solely because it's just what I love to do. I know I like spending time with them, and then, you know, we go out to dinner and just taking the car apart. I think it's cool. Like, who wouldn't want to get into a Formula One car and basically break it all up, right? So all of that was just for my enjoyment and stuff I was interested in. And at the same time, there was just an added bonus from that. And that was that I got to spend time with them and they liked it and they liked the help.
I love that. That reminds us of one of our earlier interviews we did with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer when he was manager of Manchester United, and he told us about one of their selection criteria was the guy. They would often notice who were the guys that went and collect the bibs and the cones and the balls after training, because that told them something about their values of being a team player that they wanted to have in their world.
And I would recommend Rick Lewis, a businessman. He shared his 12 guiding principles of business, and one of them was everyone puts the bins out. Yeah.
What's the New Zealand story when they were sweeping the sheds, right?
Yeah.
That kind of stuff. Like, just putting that extra little effort in to just help them, because I guess it's easier to see you as the driver as the superior guy within the team rather than the guy who's part of the team wanting to be part of it all.
So when you were in that position then of sort of working with the mechanics and helping them out, what did you see from other drivers that, first of all, you thought, I'm not going to do that?
Yeah.
And what were the things that you saw that you thought, I am going to steal that idea?
I mean, from the second point first would be, it's just an extra opportunity for me to try and do better than someone else. Like, there's no downside from doing it. There's no negative. Like, what else are you going to do? You're going to go home and play on the Xbox in the hotel for a bit, or just go and grab dinner a couple hours earlier. Like, it doesn't, for me, that's not, like, there's no gain for me in doing that. And for my own career and what I knew, there was enjoyment in it, and there's the bonus of working with the team more, you know, and our relationships improving and so on, and knowing that I didn't know at the time, but I guess more likely to be in the racing seat a couple of years later. It's only going to be a good thing for me that we have that relationship and bond together. So I think, those were the good things. The bad things of what I saw in other drivers is, I would say it's more what you hear from people, you know, about the attitudes of different drivers or different people, how, you know, like, not order, but like how they would just talk to people and how they would talk to them just in front of cameras, rather than as soon as the camera's gone, they would just go back to being the racing driver and not the team player. Just some more things like that, which you hear and you just think, like, if it was the opposite way around and I was that person, I would hate the fact that these people talk about me like that. Yeah. And I would hate that people talk about behind my back of me in a bad way because of me thinking I'm much better and above everyone else, you know. So that's really something I would hate.
I think this is really interesting for me personally, because when you were much younger, I was involved for a short time in Formula One, and my first ever trip to a factory was Red Bull where
Yeah.
Sebastian Vettel was involved at the time. It was 2009 and he just joined the team. And I remember he had not been there very long, and I went in and he knew the guy whose mum had been ill, or the girl who just got married, or the person who had a physical issue they were trying to deal with at the moment, or there was someone I remember at the time who was struggling with their mental health, and he spoke to them about that. And I was watching this thinking, I used to think you just drove a car.
Yeah.
Now I start to realise that, and for people that are listening to this and don't understand how complex and involved your world is, you're effectively a kind of managing director of a group of people in this building.
In a way.
And exactly in a way, you have to get them to operate in the way that you like, and you have to push them, they have to push you. I'd be so interested to know, when you first walked in this building and you were given the race seat and it was suddenly your responsibility to be the MD of that area, do you remember what you said or the message you wanted to convey to the people that would be working directly with you to create a culture that you wanted around you?
I think the main thing was bringing like their work and effort and everything that they put into it, and just rewarding them simply. Like a lot of what there's always the times when you have to speak to the teams or the team here, and I get real nervous in front of the hundreds of people that are there. But I feel like there's just so much responsibility on me, and the amount of effort and time that's gone into building what I drive. And then I'm that final piece of the jigsaw that just needs to go out and do the job that they're all expecting. So for me, it's just I'm not a part of that chain, and I just want to finish off the job that they've started. And that's from building the car, and the drawings that they start off with, all the way to the computers, to the actual thing, and then putting it on track. So the only things I said is I just want to do them proud and put together their story of going from a piece of paper to hopefully a trophy at the end of the day, but that's a tough one. So. And
how important was the personal relationship with all of these individuals? Because there's a lot of people on your side of the.
There's a heck of a load of people, so that definitely makes it more nerve-wracking, and you get a lot more nerves from that side of it. But the main thing for me is just enjoying things that I do. Whether or not I would still be here if I enjoyed it, I'm not too sure. But the main thing the reason I do it is because I enjoy it. So if I want to enjoy things, then my enjoyment doesn't come from me thinking that I don't need to care about the others. A lot of it comes from me getting to know them and spending some time with them, having chats.
And you feel the benefits of that?
Yes. Yeah.
So can you give us a specific example then, Lando, of where you feel one of those relationships you've invested in has had a direct, tangible effect when you're behind the wheel of a car?
When you're behind the wheel, it's hard to think of anything directly. Some things come from when you're not behind the wheel, whether it's just you need a bit of help with something, or you just need to contact someone, and just because you've been nice to them and you've spoken to them and spent 10 minutes with them or something, they will just go that extra little mile for you, and they will get you something in return. And not that's how I work my life, and I just want favors from people, but just you put some effort in with them and just spend some time with them, and they'll do the same for you. When you're driving behind the car, it's difficult. I think there's so many parts that come to it. There isn't just one thing which makes that little bit of a difference. I think I couldn't give you an example of when I'm nice to someone, how it returns to me when I actually drive the car. But I think there's more just how everything works in the background, and a trust and responsibility and so on that people will give to you when you give it to them. And if people are staying here late and so on, or if I've had some problems with something, then they would just go out and help me, rather than me just being someone that they work for or with. There's just I'm their friend or their mate or whatever it is, and that definitely makes a difference.
Can we wind back to the first season in Formula One? And from the outside, for everyone, it would look amazing because you're the youngest ever British debutant in Formula One. You're still a teenager. You're driving a car. It's a dream. And the car we've got alongside us, it bears quite prominently the logo for the Mind charity, who work to support people's mental health. Everyone has spoken about the joys of being a Formula One driver, and many people understand that. Would you mind sharing with us some of the struggles of that first year?
Sure. So I think all of it would already start at the first race. Just like we kind of spoke about, the amount of people which are here working on everything, and like at that point I just feel like just another driver. I don't feel like I'm way better than everyone else at this point, or necessarily believe I'm much better than everyone else at this point. But like I'm on the grid and I just think like so many people are watching me. I have so much to deliver for the whole team. And I am a new driver in Formula One. There's a lot of eyes on me. There's expectations. You don't want to let McLaren down. You know, they're one of the most historic teams in Formula One. So, like that already just puts that pressure on. I think when things start going or become tougher, or when you just don't, the media is one of the biggest things. How the media portrays you is one of the biggest things. So when things start to go wrong, when you make a couple of mistakes and the media have a little dig at you, and then fans and people on social media start to have more of a dig at you, that's when like that self-doubt that sometimes I would have, like that grows when people kind of just add on to that, And I struggled a lot in like the final few years to get into Formula One, so Formula 3, Formula 2, having that belief of, am I better than them? Am I the same as them? Am I a little bit worse? Like, am I good enough to be in Formula One? And that kind of stays, even when I was in that first year of Formula One, like, am I good enough to go around Monaco and deliver that lap in Q3 when it comes? Or if I'm in a position to be on the podium or on top of the podium, am I there? Am I going to be able to deliver it when it counts? But that's okay, and I can live with that quite easily on when maybe I made those little mistakes and so on. But when people add to it and you see comments, that's when you like start to feel a lot worse about yourself. And especially when I'm in my first year, it's like I know my parents have put so much effort into helping me get to there. The team have all the expectations. The whole world are watching, and then you just think like, if this goes wrong, it's my first year in Formula One. If this goes wrong, what am I going to do if I'm not in Formula One? Because this is all I've lived for my whole life. I wasn't the smartest guy in school, and I struggled quite a bit in school. Like, what am I going to fall on, right? If all of this goes wrong, and even just having those thoughts is already.
And this is all swilling around while you're still trying to drive a Formula One car to the best of your ability.
Exactly. And always putting on like the smiley face for the cameras and all those kind of things. Like that's not the easiest thing, but. Yeah, you just get into that point when, like, even I had maybe 3 or 4 races where I was just struggling a little bit, and I had Carlos as my teammate at that point, and he was doing a very good job. He was getting to grips with the car and extracting everything out of it, and just 3 or 4 races where like he beat me, and I was just like, what do I do? I just got to the point where I don't know, is this the end of it? It's like, what if I can't just find something else? What I didn't know what to do at that point.
That sounds quite lonely. Did it feel?
It is, yeah. Especially because I'm a guy who doesn't like to talk too much. I guess sometimes I do, but a lot of the time I like to keep things like hidden and tucked inside and stuff. And when I have problems, I tend not to talk about them. Especially back then, definitely didn't talk about them as much as what I do now. So a lot of it is my mind. How like I like to think of it more on my own. And
how self-critical were you being at this point?
I say too much. Like, I'm definitely my biggest critic, but like I think a lot of pros and you see footballers or Formula One drivers, whoever it is, I think they're their own biggest critics by a long way. But I think you need to learn the balance of it, and also know when to pat yourself on the back a little bit and say you've done a good job. But there was a lot less of that than there was of bringing myself down. So always having that self-doubt and that being critical of myself and just thinking on my own and not like allowing others to help me as much as I could, because I always thought it would be my fault, not someone else's. And I would hate to ever blame it on someone else. So
this is a good conversation then, because we were joined by an explorer called Nims Purger.
Yeah.
And he said excuses remove the learnings.
Yeah.
Right. So you're looking at Carlos, and for those that don't know much about Formula One, that is the first judge is your teammate, right? That's the first person to beat. And you've been beaten 3 or 4 races running by him. I'd love to know the process you went through to work that out in your own head, because if you just think, oh, well, he's been in the team longer, or he's been in the sport longer, or he's more experienced than me, the excuses are removing the learning.
I could never use experience as the excuse. Like, that was one I could... Why not? Like, now I feel like I can use it because I've learned about how much it can actually change you.
Yep.
But at that point, I would never want to use the excuse apart from it's myself. And
I hadn't thought about that though. You can't use experience is the excuse because you've got no understanding of what experience gives you.
Exactly. And until that point, I've only ever done 1 year in every category I've done. So I've not spent those multiple years like I've done now in Formula One. And I just hated to use it. If someone say, why has he done better than you here? I go, he's just more experienced. Like, it's such an easy thing to say and to use. And I just really never wanted to use it. But like now I have a much better understanding, and I can go, I know I didn't do that as well because of the experience. But I know at that point I would never have used it.
So what did you?
I think there's just a lot of hours and days, probably months, of it just like swirling in your head, and you're thinking things over and over again. Like, why has he done that better? How has he done that better? What's he thinking of? How does he spend his time? And then you do it to yourself. Like, what am I not doing good enough? Why am I not doing it as good as him? Is it because of this or that or this or that? And you just come up with all of these excuses for yourself. But then I kind of got to a point when, because it was 4 races instead of the 3, it was 4. Like, what differences? Like, kind of got to the point when I started to realize, like, what else can I do now to make some changes? And it was like coming here, spending a little bit more time with my engineers, sitting down, just refreshing everything, kind of starting again a little bit, and trying to get some of that self-confidence back inside, because that's one of the biggest things. Like, if I go out and I just think, I'm confident I can go out and brake at this point, and I can deliver the lap when I need to. Just thinking of these little things can already start to just click and start to just make things turn over a little bit. And that's when like small things started. But it's just getting to that point, which is the difficult part.
See, what's fascinating there, though, is because it's often referred to, what you're describing, Lando, as the psychological cage.
Yeah.
So where the weight of expectation, everyone's looking at you, your eyes are on you, is heavy, or the fear of consequences of getting it wrong and making mistakes feels too steep.
Yep.
They squeeze your focus on your own ability and what you can do. So how did you dial down the expectation levels and sort of minimise the fear of getting it wrong to be able to then focus on what you could do differently?
I think it gets to like when you're thinking of things for so long, like you start to, I think I was luckily at a point where I could think of a couple of positive things every now and then. And I'm like, I am in Formula One. Like, there must be some things that I do very well.
So you caught yourself doing things right?
Yes. Like, I think what's tricky is like sometimes just understanding that. And I think that's when people suffer even more, is when they maybe don't see those kind of things. But I think I was still able to understand a few of them and think, I'm here because I'm good enough in many, many circumstances and with many things. What are they? And just maximize them. So you kind of think, how can I still maximize what I know I'm good at? And when I started to think a little bit more on those, that's when you then think of some of those other things you might definitely not be as good at. And then that's when I could start to pick out a few more of the pieces and think, okay, now I can just start to focus a little bit on this and a little bit on this, and then you can start taking those little steps forward. But for me, almost it was realizing what I'm good at first, and then it kind of, you don't get lost with everything you're thinking of. You're not thinking, am I actually fast enough? Because that's such a general term to use. It's I know I'm fast enough. I know I'm good in these circumstances, and then it starts to even out like the graph of, okay, these are the couple places I'm definitely not good enough, and it's just then I can focus on them. When you have something to focus on, rather than just being completely lost with so many things, and then you just think of them, you speak about them a little bit, and then you spark conversations, and then you talk about them, and you just get some slightly better understandings, and then you start to gain some momentum and go from there again.
I think what's really powerful for people to hear in this conversation is that what you haven't said is, I decided I wanted to win a race. I decided I wanted a podium. I decided I was going to be 0.3 of a second quicker over a lap. Those are all outcome-focused goals.
Exactly.
You clearly went into the process and focused on the process.
Yeah, I mean, especially when you're in a competition side of it and you want to win. When you want that, that you want that reward, something that's going to give you so much pleasure and the team pleasure. It's easy to think of it that way, but I guess there's like when I think of I'm good enough to be in Formula One, there's also things which I would be thinking of and ways of how I work, which are also going to be good enough, or good building blocks at least. So I think those parts of me which I knew were strong enough to like kind of start to realize these things and create a bit of change. And I was lucky I kind of had those things at least to be able to work from and to start thinking slightly differently and so on. Of course, like if I didn't have that, I could still be in that bit of a spiral and not be thinking I'm still good enough to be in this position and stuff like that. But as soon as I start a little bit, I don't think I just need to go out and beat him all of a sudden. But like, how am I going to beat him and the processes? Then you start to realize how you can make change.
So what top tips would you give to people listening to this, Lando, that maybe are in that fog of confusion, maybe feeling a bit lost? And
well, I think like one thing I've not really mentioned as much, or I mentioned a little bit earlier, was the one thing for me that motivates me more than anything is enjoyment and just fun. Like it's a nice little word, but it's maybe like an immature word to use, but it's fun and enjoyment. Like if I'm enjoying something, it makes me work harder and makes me want it more. And then it's a positive spiral of if I work harder, I reward myself more, I enjoy it more, and I work harder, and it's just, you keep going up. I'd say maybe I got to a point where I wasn't enjoying it as much.
Really?
And
can you remember when that point was?
I can't exactly.
It's in the first season, though.
It will be in the first season, like maybe halfway towards 3/4 of the way through, and I just was like, like because you're thinking of so many things. You're not just thinking of like I'm driving a Formula One car in, freaking America or Japan or whatever it is, which is just awesome. And you start thinking about it, and it just clouds your judgment, like you said. So. The first few things are like maybe which I would say sparked it off is I need to enjoy it, and I think even like my manager and my trainer could kind of tell what was going on a little bit at this point, and there was a little bit more time spent on having some days away, enjoying my life, and maximizing my days at home, with my family or with my friends, whatever it was, going out a little bit, going out to dinners again, and that kind of just frees your mind up a little bit. So I think maybe the first key point is enjoyment. Are you enjoying it? Yes or no? And kind of understanding, can you enjoy it? Like it's maybe not easy for people to enjoy the job that they have or whatever they're doing. But I know I could enjoy Formula One and the job I'm in. So I know I could enjoy it. It's just understanding what kind of brought that to me and so on. And then you can go into those, start kind of picking up on those details, those smaller details again. But for me, the main thing is the enjoyment and how can I do that? Once I get back into that mentality, it's then what we just spoke about, is the picking up on the what am I good at, what do I know like I'm strong in, and then finding the places that you're weak in and kind of just going from there.
So let's talk about our favourite subject on the High Performance Podcasts.
Yep.
Responsibility.
Yeah.
Which quite simply is the ability to respond. Yeah. So we've spoken about you've had some difficult times, that first season, full of learning. You've managed to get through it. You've clearly had a lot of self-talk.
Yep.
And the team have been brilliant around you and you've got to a great place. And then we fast forward to the Russian Grand Prix.
Yes.
Where you're within a whisker of winning your first ever race. And fault versus responsibility. Okay, loads of things happen in life that are not our fault.
Yep.
But they're still our responsibility.
Yes.
Okay, it was not your fault that the rain came. It was your responsibility, A, to deal with it on track, but then with subsequent events to deal with it afterwards.
Yep.
So are you happy to talk through
I can.
Your responsibility in that situation?
Yeah.
Behind the wheel of the car, I guess, is where we should begin.
So I guess it starts within the race, those final few moments. Leading, Lewis has caught me, but I've managed to hold him off for 5, 6, 7, 8 laps. And there's that glimmer of hope. Like I'm holding him behind, there's only 5, 6 laps to go. I know I can continue to do this. And then the rain's coming and there's just that build up of pressure. Like, you're focusing, you see one little puddle or a bit of a shiny surface, it's wet and all these things. And you're then in that communication with the team, you're trying to give feedback to them, they're trying to help you. And I remember getting a little bit shouty on the radio at the time, but not in a, like, my engineer knows that there's never anything against him, right? It's just, you're in the moment, you just say things, and it doesn't really matter. Like, it matters, and maybe that's one of the things I've learned now, is it matters how it comes across. But the time I was just like, I shout no or shout yes. But how they perceive it can have a small effect, it can have a small change, or they start to think of something.
So how did they perceive it? How did you find out afterwards?
So obviously, like, we would go through all the video, we go through what everyone is thinking, because it's not just me and my engineer. You've got strategists at the track. You have like the engineers. You got then strategists back here in MTC, and they're all looking at every little bit of data, right? People who have done the pit stops onto the intermediate tires, people who are staying out, my pace, Lewis's pace. The big one: is there more rain coming? Is there not any more rain coming? Just going back over all of these things, and I guess, like, I didn't realize how shouty I was on the radio. Like, I come across as like a little kid, but it's not like I ever mean to. It's just,
where they said, "Do you want to pit for instance?"
Yeah,
and you
that's
yelled,
when I said no.
No.
Yeah.
Have you had the conversation? Because this is so interesting when it comes to communication. Have you had the conversation that the way you said no,
yes,
meant your race engineer couldn't go, "No, I really think you should"?
Yes, of course we spoke about that. But I think we've had like a kind of these conversations before, and I think they did kind of understand the situation I was in, right? With Lewis behind me, a few laps to go, leading the race. Like, even for them, there's more pressure. It's the first time we've been in a situation. Of course, I think Daniel won the weekend before, so they kind of were already a little bit prepared for it. But it's there were so many more factors this time, and we did speak about it, and I don't think it changed, let's say, the overall outcome. I don't think what I said or how I said it changed the outcome of what we did. Even if I just said no no, I wouldn't like to pit in a nice way, it wouldn't have changed anything. But maybe people would have started to think slightly differently and so on. So you kind of never know. But yes, we went through everything that I said, how I said it, the effects that it could have on myself, on the teams, on how they then put it across to the other people who are then listening to them and so on. And the decisions which come from every little bit of information. But I guess you kind of need to then realize what can be having the big effect and what can't. And me just saying no didn't change the outcome in any way, but there could be a time and a place when it does. And it could also, I could simply have given them a little bit more information at the same time. Instead of just shouting no, I could have gone, no, I'm happy on the slick tire at the minute, but it's very tricky, and if it rains any more, then I'll need a pit. Obviously, probably that in a more condensed way and a bit quicker. And maybe that could have sparked something in their mind, which was maybe we see a little bit more rain coming, maybe we don't, whatever it was. Let's pit, let's not pit. The end of the fact was, in the end of it, they didn't realize how much more rain was coming, and how much worse it was about to get. And I was only with 2 laps to go. So, we obviously made the decision, and I think like what people, let's say, don't realize as much is that Lewis was in exactly the same position as me. Of course, he was in second, but he didn't want to pit either. He was happy with staying on slick tires, but the team told him it's about to rain a heck of a lot more. You need to pit. And that's like information that I didn't get given. And if they maybe said to me it's about to rain a lot more, then I would have been like, okay, then I'll need a pit. So it would go both ways. It's stuff that I could have helped with them, and stuff that they could have given to me. And it's not still as simple as that. There's so many other factors and things that they're looking at and seeing and so on. But like, as a simple way of putting it, that's what it came down to.
So how did you flush out that disappointment? How long did it take you, and what was the process that you went through to move on?
I mean, like, the next, let's say 3-4 days were pretty tough, just because it's like always then thinking that could have been my first win in Formula One, and I think as far as like that could have been my only win in Formula One, my only chance to Formula One. You never know, because you don't know what car we're going to have this year and next year and so on. But there's times when people's F1 careers only last a couple of years or 3-4 years, whatever it is. So it's like, could that have been my only chance to win a race in Formula One? And then you kind of, like what we spoke about earlier, what could I have said differently? What could I have done differently? And I think of all of these things. But then when we sat down and just just stop for a little bit and you kind of review everything in a clean way and an efficient way. You pick apart the things we did well, the things we didn't do well, and what could have been what were the deciding factors with everything.
What's now then the single biggest bit of learning for you from those few laps?
The main thing is to never like get caught up in a moment. So the moment of that was I'm leading a race. I got Lewis behind me. It's wet. I wasn't thinking as clearly as what I should have been thinking. And the more information I can just clearly give the team, the more they can understand like the position that I'm in, how I'm feeling, and the easier we can make decisions. But because sometimes I maybe just say no when I expect too much of them. I expect them to just know what I'm thinking, what I'm feeling, when they don't. They can see data, they see the lines and graphs or whatever, but they're not behind the wheel, so they don't know, like, am I really like, am I pushing like hell? If I got a little bit more, am I going to be in the wall? Like all of these little things. So just kind of staying calm, which is such an easy thing to say, but doing it when you're in that circumstance is very different. But just clear and concise information is just always the best thing. And them giving it to me in our way and vice versa is only going to help us win races and get on the podium more often. So understanding that is the best thing.
So will you take us into that debrief meeting then, Lando, and tell us the kind of questions that you're asking that get the best results to learn and move on next time?
So I think one of the main things which I came back from after Russia and having those few days off to think about it is, the first one is what could I have done differently? Again, just thinking of it like as a me fault. What could I have done differently? And then we listen to the radio and all of these things. And for me, it was just all I wanted to understand was it my fault? Yes or no? In the end, it's easier to like to say no, like now. It wasn't my fault, but that doesn't mean like there's nothing I could have done better. And of course, we just kind of spoke about some of those things that I could have done better and should have done. And already some of these things were put into practice, I think a couple of weeks later back in Turkey, when it was drying out a little bit. It was hard to choose whether to go intermediates or slicks, went to box and so on. And it goes from the week of Russia, Mercedes looking like heroes, all clever. They made the best decision ever. We made the worst. And it was completely flipped the next week. Mercedes made a terrible decision, went to box. We made a really good one. We gained, they lost. And then it's just suddenly, how quickly things can just change and flip. But already some of those decisions we made at that race in Turkey were affected and changed because of what happened in Russia. So we already put some of that into practice and it came out much better. But yeah, as a person, from the personal note, was understanding, was it my fault? Yes or no? Like that's just something I need to get off my chest, nice and early. And then you look at the small things and what could I have said which might have helped. And it was down to that. If it rained any more, I couldn't have stayed out. I would have needed to box. And if they knew it was about to rain more, which is the thing that they didn't, then we would have made the decision to box. But they didn't have as much information as what they needed, or didn't understand the information as well as they needed to. Didn't get that across to me as well as we needed to. And maybe that little bit of information I could have given them could have changed things. Don't think it would have done. But there's always that next time when those things can come again and we can try and do a better job.
It's a good reminder that what is hard for you isn't necessarily bad for you. I mean, like you're a better
exactly.
driver.
I'm much happier that it's happened in a time when I'm not going for a championship. I'm not going even for top 3 or top 4. I'm going for 6th or 7th in the championship. Like for me, it's not a big achievement to do something like that. So,
do you think about the first win? Because I think it's so easy to sit in now and think I just want to win a race. But if you could be an 11-year-old Lando again, you just want to be in Formula One. You have to be very careful becoming obsessed with the outcome.
Yes.
Because you either get there and then you're demotivated, or you never get there and you're demotivated.
Yeah. No, I wouldn't. Of course, I think of it. I can't lie. I think everyone on the grid would say that they thought about winning the race, and especially that one. When I saw then Lewis, I think it was his 100th race win. Then it just made me feel even worse. Like I just gave him his 100th race win. I've not even got one. And you see those, a few cases where the outsiders won the race. you got Mercedes and Red Bull who are always going to win. But when Esteban won the race in Budapest, who else won? I think Carlos won a race at some point also. Or I don't know, a few different drivers who won in Mercedes or Red Bull, and that's when it looks even cooler because they're the people in my position.
Where's the benefit to you in thinking like that? Because there are hundreds of people, my son being one of them, looking at you thinking, I'd like to be where he is, and you're thinking you want to be where they are. I
guess because you always move those expectations. You're always going to up them, and like, what's the next step for you to achieve something? And you always want to be satisfied by reaching an achievement. But I think in Formula One that's so difficult because it's not like a guarantee you're ever going to win a race or be on the podium or anything like that, and that could have nothing to do with you, right? It could just be because of reliability, or your car's not quick enough, or the rain comes, or whatever it is. So it's never always going to be your fault. So maybe there's some things you can change here and there, but no, I think you need to understand when you get to Formula One, a race win doesn't necessarily mean you're first place in the race, right? Like a race win for me 2 years ago, like in Austria, was being third place. Zero chance I would have ever won a race. Impossible, like unless they all crash and whatever. But in terms of actually achieving our maximal potential, it was to finish in third place, and that's what I did. So I maybe would have been even happier winning the race, but there's no point thinking about it because it just never would have happened. So I just had to feel like a race win was a P3 for me and a bit of...
See, what's really interesting is you're describing the process and performance goals that are within your control, the outcome is the stuff that you've learned to
Yes, exactly.
To but what fascinates me when I was reading about your background, Lando, is given your age, that the driver that's been dominant as you've grown up in the sport watching it is somebody that's now a rival. So how do you mentally get beyond seeing somebody that might have been a hero 5 years ago to now be somebody that you want to topple?
It's a tricky one because the first few times I really I had a chance to race him were like Austria, you would say Russia a little bit, kind of, can I keep a 7-time world champion behind me? These kind of things, which like they do play in your mind a little bit.
And were you thinking that? Can I keep a 7-time world champion? Or were you thinking, can I be the guy driving that car?
Yeah, because like at that time I'm not necessarily thinking exactly those words.
Yeah.
But the thinking, I'm like, I'm going around and you're just on the straight, you're thinking, all right, like, what is he going to try and do now? Like, what has he understood or what's he learned over the last, 20 years that he's going to try and outsmart me on? Is it the battery? Is it the tires? Is it the engine mode? Is he going to try and like pull back to make me feel like I'm comfortable and then pounce and then have a go? And like, all of these things playing in my head. What's he going to try and outsmart me on? Those things definitely play on your mind a little bit. On especially like we spoke about the experience side of it. There's something he's going to be more experienced than me on. I just need to be ready to anticipate what that might be. I might know it, I might not, but I just got to be ready for those kind of things. So once you then go through that little feeling you have and those thoughts, and you have an outcome, the outcome of the race obviously was not a good one. We should have won and we didn't. But the outcome of, I managed to hold him off for as long as I could. And he didn't just cruise past me. It wasn't like I made a mistake and he came past me. He didn't outsmart me. Then it just gives you a little bit more confidence. Like, well, he didn't actually do anything out of this world and do something which I wasn't expecting or anything, And it was the same in Austria. Like, there wasn't something, he just did that extra mile, which I was just like, wow, that's unbelievable. I covered the basics. There are smaller things which I need to be prepared for, but these things give you a big confidence booster once you achieve them. And it's just because you kind of overthink it sometimes. It's easy to overthink things. And that's when it can get much trickier than it needs to be.
We've almost reached the end where we do our quick-fire questions.
Okay.
Before we get there, like, I just get this overriding sense that this would have seemed like such an alien environment when you first walked in. And I'm sure the imposter syndrome was strong, and, you would have thought of all those McLaren drivers over the years. And the more we've spoken, the more comfortable you seem about being a Formula One driver behind the wheel. How comfy are you as a Formula One driver, as a public figure? I mean, I'm thinking the relationship with the press or the scrutiny, not necessarily criticism, because I see just positivity about you, but I see a lot of scrutiny. You know, a photo goes up with you and a young lady, and I see your name trending on Twitter. You know, I can't even begin to imagine what that is like, because, and I don't want this to come across the wrong way, like you're still only in your early 20s. Like when you're 43, maybe you should deal with it. But I just think that all the years of driving and racing karts doesn't equip you for that side of it. So
No.
Where are you on that element these days?
I definitely, like right now, I'm definitely in the best position I've been in. Not just, like you said, as a racing driver, but just being a normal person away from the circuit. A bit of that has just come with making the mistakes and posting something I shouldn't have done, or saying something I should have done. And you get, again, the experience of learning about these kind of things, learning how media can pick up on something so small, or how, especially fans.
Would you share with us your biggest learning from that, where you thought, I didn't even mean that? I was like...
I mean, there's not been one big thing, but there's just been like comments, you know, where I would have said something, and like it would have been probably about Lewis or Sebastian, or one of the like the drivers I respect more than anyone.
You said something which obviously you didn't. Something about Lewis, wasn't it? About it means less or something if you win in that car or something. Do you know?
Yeah. Oh yes. Yeah. Well, it was Mercedes, right?
That's what it was. It was like, it's a great car kind of comment.
Yes, like you should expect him to win a race because he's in a Mercedes. Which
but then it gets twisted.
Probably the same thing everyone in the world's thought about, but just me saying it in an interview is what changes all of it.
So how do you still be yourself?
That's the tricky thing, because like what I meant, I would never mean something to have bad intentions. Like that's just not the person I am. Unless I really hate someone. But I would never mean it, especially in an interview when I have nothing against the person, Lewis at this point, or Mercedes. Like, what's the reason? There's no gain for me to do so. There's no, like, that's just silly. So the fact people want to put it across that way, and if people believe that, then they obviously just don't know me very well, right? But the obvious one is just I just got to be more careful with what I say here and there. But to like, once you kind of get through it a couple times and you maybe say 2 or 3 things, people start to just kind of have like a bit more of a belief in you, in the things you say, rather than you just saying one comment which is just outrageous. And you just kind of, maybe the respect as well, you got to gain that little bit of respect by sometimes saying things that people don't agree with. Because then you lose those, say, fans, you lose those few people which are just like, hate you for saying those kind of things. And I'm very happy to have people, you know, not following me anymore if they kind of just want to believe everything that they see in social media and things like that, because then they simply don't know who I am very well. So you just gotta accept it a couple of times. Like you just got to go through those hard times, being told off by the team and things like that. But like you just kind of also realize that you have the right to say things that you want, and not everyone's going to agree with it. But I never want people to think of me in a bad way, or think like we spoke about in the beginning, that I'm miles better than everyone and I should have more right to do things and say things than other people. Like that's far from what I would ever believe and want to lead people to believe. So it's hard because I would always have it with the best intention, but just people understanding that is what's difficult. So just saying it like now, and people listening to this, and the more people will believe, like
exactly.
That's
I think
just
even
how
this
it comes.
is powerful, and I think maybe 2 or 3 years ago, the team or you wouldn't have necessarily wanted a conversation like this.
Yeah.
But you get comfortable in your
exactly,
and it's like you're here for a short time. You have to be you.
You get comfortable with people not liking it. Like that's something you just have to do. You have to get comfortable with people not liking what you say here and there, and just live with it. Like that's just a part of life. That's people. You know, different opinions, and
it means you stand for something. Surely.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think before I was a little bit more in the middle. You know, where I would say these things, but I just didn't want people to have opinions on me. I just wanted to be nice and in the middle ground of everywhere. Whereas I guess now I feel like I can stand up for my own opinion a little bit more and say what I want a little bit more, and understand that people are going to be with me and some people are going to be against me. And I'm happy, but like I'm fine with that nowadays. Like that's just, I've understood that's life. That's always going to happen as long as people and humans are around. That's just the way we're made. And just got to deal with it, but that's all.
Wonderful. Right, Lando. our quick-fire questions.
Far away.
The first one is the 3 non-negotiables that you and the people around you need to buy into. The 3 rules that you live your life by, really.
Enjoy life. Number 1 by mile. Enjoy life. Be kind. You'll help those people. Make their day, make their week. If I take 1 minute out of my day to go and sign a picture for a kid or something, like sometimes it's not necessarily what you want to go and do, but you just made that kid's year sometimes, and it's just a cool feeling you get after it. So be kind, because you give to them and it'll give back to you eventually. Number 3. Those are the only 2 really. Number 3, learn when you know you've done a good job and be happy with that.
Yep.
And kind of then make work from there rather than
be
just...
Be kind to yourself, right?
Be kind to yourself, yeah. Not only other people, but be kind to yourself.
Yeah.
So those 3 things are most important to me.
If you could go back to any one moment in your life, what would it be and why?
Not to change, right? Just to relive it.
Unless you want to change something.
No, there's no point in changing something. I would love to go back to just when I was younger. I was always rude to my parents, so I'd love to be a bit nicer to them at times. Be nice to my parents.
Good. I like the fact you don't want to go and change things. Like, you could easily go back to Russia and say, "Oh, I'd put on." But
No.
It would remove the learning.
I know. It would remove the learning and just remove the point of life. Like, if everything's perfect, it's not as enjoyable. So
up and down, right? Yep. Up and down. Would you recommend one book or podcast or TV series that are...
Apart from this one?
Yeah.
Books. Reading
you a
books.
reader?
I'm not a reader. No, I'm a nerd. I'm a gamer, so I spend too much time on my screens and stuff. The only one the 2 that I've read is my engineer gave it to me. It's the one about New Zealand, sweeping the sheds, everything. Learning what it means to be a team player rather than ever thinking about yourself first. That's number 1. And number 2 was the subtle art of not giving a fuck.
Yeah.
Like, again, that's one of the things which has helped me understand all of these things that go on when you get to Formula 1 and the lead up to Formula 1 is understanding what you should care about and what you shouldn't. And that's made my life much easier.
What's been the biggest sacrifice you've made to become a high performer, and would you make it again?
I would make it again, because I've got to live my life and achieve my own goals and not live someone else's life. But spending as much time with my family, I would say, is number 1. Or not having spent as much time with my family is what I would have done if I was just, I don't know, going to school and having a normal job and stuff like that. And the friends, the whole social side of it all. That's definitely one thing I would... it's a sacrifice. I realise how much of a difference it's made now. And just as a family thing, you just want to spend more time with your family, and it's always a nice thing.
And lastly, your kind of final message really for the listeners or the viewers, if they're watching this on YouTube, to your one golden rule for a high performance life.
It's the obvious one. Enjoy it. Enjoy it. I don't know, maybe everyone says that, but for me it's just a huge part of my life. I got to enjoy everything I do. Take time away from work sometimes to go and do things you want. But enjoy it, and if you don't enjoy it, sack it off and go and do something else.
Brilliant. I think it's a strong message, and it's a simple one, but
it is a really simple one. So it's I feel like a lot of people are going to say, "Oh, you didn't put much thought into that." But
because people sit on this podcast as high achievers and high performers, and they don't realise the power of the low points or the difficult times that have made life stronger for them. They don't understand that they should be focused on the process because they're still focused on the outcome. And therefore they don't realise that actually enjoying it is so important. Johnny Wilkinson, who won the Rugby World Cup for England, he kicked the winning drop goal. Do you know how long he told us that he felt that thrill for?
Probably 3 seconds or something?
Exactly that.
Really?
3 seconds.
It's either going to be 3 seconds or his whole life. But
so you take that into the rest of your days, because when you finally get that win, which no doubt will happen, or maybe even the World Championship, if 3 seconds later that flame starts to dull and you haven't enjoyed the journey, then something's wrong somewhere. So
exactly. But you got to make the sacrifices to get there. So you want to enjoy every minute, but
yes. But you should, the sacrifices can be enjoyable in life.
Yeah.
it's a good lesson for people to understand. You know?
Exactly.
Please hit subscribe, hit the notification bell, give us a thumbs up, leave a review, but somehow get involved with the High Performance Podcast and become part of our growing community. Thanks for being part of the adventure.